One evening, Ranger Brody Young found his routine patrol turn suddenly into a gunfight.
Well, it was November 19th, 2010. The sun had set. It was quite dark out. I always check various trailheads that really brings the start of a difficult trail. And usually the trailheads that are down this road, one in particular called the Poison Spider Mesa Trailhead, it's difficult, and usually when we find a vehicle in the parking lot, someone is lost or hurt.
The parking lot is an isolated place, and Brody is very much on his own. The officer he is working with is 20 miles away.
I walked around to the back side of the vehicle. Again, it's night, and I have my light out. I approached the rear of the vehicle, looked at the plate, noticed it was a Utah plate, but that it was expired. I thought I'd walk around and I'd come back and write the plate down. As I came around, looking through the back seat, I see a gentleman sleeping there. And I notice him, and I tap on the window to wake him up. He kind of opens the door, and I ask, "Are you okay?" And he says he is. He's been sleeping, and we had a discussion about not being able to camp here, and then we discussed places where he could go camp. So I came back this way, wrote his plate down rather quick, and was walking back to my truck. I always look back to see if there's any movement. I had the noise of my truck and couldn't hear his movement. And as I got to the front of my door and was turning to get in, that's when shots began firing in my direction. Yeah, the first two rounds hit my left humerus, shattered my arm, and I swung around and yelled out. I believe I was shot.
Brody was shot 9 times. His bullet-resistant vest stopped 2 of the bullets. He laid bleeding for 15 minutes until help arrived.
As we arrived, we saw the broken windows in the truck. We saw holes in the truck, and the brass from the gunfight, the bullet, scattered everywhere. It looked like somebody took a bucket of brass and just kind of threw it out on the ground.
When Brody entered the hospital, a lot of times when you see a patient, just looking at them from across the room gives you a great idea of how sick or how injured they are. And so my initial evaluation of him, just from looking at him, was, we're in trouble, he's in bad shape. His initial pulse was twice his normal resting pulse, so that suggested to me that he was very close to bleeding out. I started taking count of the injuries he had. The most obvious one was the gunshot wound to the right upper quadrant of his abdomen, and then he had a gunshot wound in his right elbow. It was obvious. And he had a gunshot wound to his left humerus, which was very obvious, and there was obvious deformity to his humerus. And as we were getting him undressed, we noticed at least 2 or 3 gunshot wounds in his right inguinal area. And when we turned him over, he had a gunshot wound in his right buttocks, and he also had a gunshot wound in the middle of his back, which appeared to be superficial. I believe that was stopped by his bulletproof vest and only penetrated superficially.